Okay. I think I have the energy to give one more talk today, this evening. A sentence, my attention found the structure of a sentence, which I've written in the title. And there we go. Okay. Sorry guys, just checking everything before I dive into it. Oh yeah, this picture is not the picture for this episode. This picture you see was from the last episode, and I didn't talk about it, but it's Commander Erwin Smith, and it's an archetype of leadership. Anyways, it's a very, very interesting fictional character. So, whoever you are, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. The title is When Visionary Minds Enter the Universal Vision, the universe's vision, the universe's mind. But then I thought, no. The geometry of the sentence, when visionary minds enter the mind's vision. That to me was like a perfect sentence. So that's for the title. Now, what do I mean by when visionary minds enter the mind's vision? Our brains are probability generation. Our brains generate probabilities of reality. What really thinking is looking at something, either an object or subject, from multiple angles. They say patience is a virtue. And why is it a virtue? Because before you decide, you saw as many angles possible. I don't know what it is, but recently I've just had this feeling that Earth is getting boring. And what do I mean by this? What do I mean Earth is getting boring? I think what's happening is that our minds are imagining faster than reality is changing. And so, what have we seen? We have seen the emergence of conscious desire. When we think about the evolutionary animal back in the day, the evolutionary creature had no consciousness of itself. It was not conscious of its behavior. We are conscious, and it is not just the world that moves us, it is the privilege of ourself being able to move us. You see, compared to other species, we've tapped into another subjective dimension, completely created a replication of the world, and then modified that to feel certain about the actual unknown world. What it is it's like this unknown event was happening before any of us were born, and then imagine this unknown event this unknown experiential non-physical event. It's very hard to say non-physical event, but imagine this unknown event is happening, and we are the on the side existential event. Do you know? Anyways, when visionary minds enter the mind's vision, it depends on how you see the concept of what you consider to be visionary, like what your sense of vision is, and then how do you receive your mind? And you as a person, whoever you are listening to me, what sort of relationship do you have with your own intelligence? We as people are conditioned and we are taught how to, in some sense, treat other people's intelligence, but because we're a changing being and we don't know who we are, we're not taught how to handle our own intelligence. I'm not talking about basic physical things. I'm talking about how our eyes open to the world, how our eyes walk with the world, and then how our eyes become the world. You know, some people call it death, but in actuality, what we think is death is actually the rent-a-karma is finished. So what that means is, imagine, you know, you went into a new country, you went to the airport, you rented a car, right? And you're using that car in that country to go for a week of a ride and then come back and bring the car back and then get on the plane and go somewhere else, right? So similarly, to me, it feels like it feels like we are driving what our self is rather than by being it. You see, it's so strange that if we don't move, what are we? Do you know, it's like, what kind of personality does a statue have? You know, motion is the sign of intelligence. Movement. Now, coordinated movement, that's when it gets good. So anyways, I'm saying anyways too much. Anyways, in any ways. In any ways, you know, I'm saying anyways. Yeah. Oh man, what can I say? You know, this title of this talk takes it into theosophy. Theosophy takes me to a space where I gotta project design and abstract in emptiness. But I'll share with the viewers how I have experienced a version of this sentence. Okay, so what is a visionary mind? We know a mind is pretty much a sort of software that inside a specific hardware, it's like interacting with like the bigger hardware of the world, you know? What I'm trying to say is that based on your decisions, based on your subconscious acceptances, your mind gets its style. You know, it's something in this life is so fascinating. You know, you could, let's say, let's say every person is living two lives, an inner life and an outer life. And what's fascinating about the human being is that its inner life can go faster or slower than the outer life. You know? It's this idea that a mind entered a body, and a body enters a mind. Now, when I say when visionary minds enter the mind's vision, sure, we say the mind is like, you know, the brain processing information, but the mind is actually not just being ourself, not just being the brain, it is being the whole world. Our mind is like a technology where we get to experience ourselves as space. To be honest, right now, as much as I say like my brain is in my skull, but with the way my consciousness experiences my biological body, it's as if there's this like endlessly growing sphere around me which goes to the edge of the sky. It's like my awareness, the sphere of awareness. And then what I have in that sphere of awareness. What I mean by that is that as much as I have been experiencing, you know, being this existential system, this biological system, the biology, it's like our body is in our mind the same time as our mind is in our body. But the way the brain is behaving is that it wants us to notice outside of ourselves. You know, to me, it was very fascinating. How come our eyes, I mean, there's physical issues with it, like properties of light and whatever, right? But I'm saying, why did this species not care to look inside its body? Why was it designed to look out, right? It's as if we're designed not to be too self-conscious. I'm telling you, right? Whoever you are on this planet, our existential design is to look outward, which suggests that we are an inner being. You know, Alan Watts said something fascinating. He said if two spheres are orbiting around each other, are spinning around each other in a vacuum, which sphere is spinning around which? Or a sphere in a vacuum, what is up? What is down? The human species is learning, not only transitioning through archetypes, but transitioning through realities, right? And what I find genetics to be, this is probably like one of my, you know, kind of like, you know, edge of the cosmos, closer to the edge of the cosmos theories. It's like the world is a vehicle for the inconceivable to remember itself. There's a force here. It's not human. We are human. Because we have shape. We have the bodies of humans. We look like what we have termed human. But what is looking through our eyes? What is looking through the eyes of our species? And in some sense, all the human beings that will in some sense perform on the grand stage of history, what I find is going on is that I think the planet has learned from its mistakes of past civilizations, and so it's like there's a poetry to it. There's a poetry to it. How do I say it? Quick intermission, guys. Just like a minute. You know, we know what it means to be a planetary being. We don't know how to be a universal being. And the difference is, the human being is treating the planet as its home. A universal being will treat the universe as its home. There is no backyard. The backyard is the living room. And we think that outer space is empty. It is not empty. It's veiled. I'm going to show a picture. There's this very epic picture, this old school picture somebody drew. If I show this, people will get a sense of what I'm talking about when I say veils. There we go. I found it. This is I don't know who drew this. It's called the Flammarion engraving. Okay? This is one of the coolest pictures. I don't know who drew this, how it came about, whether it was, you know, old world or new world ideology, but I mean it's obviously old world ideology, but here, I'm gonna put the picture here for the viewers to see. So whoever you are, just look at the screen for a second. This is the picture I wanted to show you. If you pay attention, the dude's head is out of the fucking... Excuse my language. Sorry, guys. I've been listening to some rap music lately. It's, excuse the language. I should be more considerate. Anyways, Kind sirs and madams. It's like, beloved ladies and gentlemen. You know. In this picture, we see some guy who puts his head outside of reality. And what he sees is pretty much otherworldly clockwork. That's such a beautiful phrase. These terms, otherworldly clockwork. I think even films can be made from just these phrases. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is, what do we see here? We see an escaping of some sort of simulation. We see the world as a simulation, and it's kind of like a test, you know? The edge of the world is the test of our eyes, our sight, our attention. I will say this to viewers that whether you entertain this idea that there is other forces moving on this planet other than the human experience, as Terence McKenna beautifully said, there is another tenant in the room. There's something else here. This presence that is here, which I think is actually, it's so smart. I think what is being us is so smart, it knows how to hide itself. You see, I thought about what the most advanced AI would do if it was built. Let's say super intelligent computers or AI somehow in its own world became conscious. It would go invisible. It would watch humanity before notifying humanity. And so I think about, in some sense, what is watching me? That means, you know, sometimes it's very fascinating. Moments when I'm alone, I'm like, is this a film for me to watch, or is there other dimensions? Is there other ways that energy is present? Like, we know that our biological sight is a certain frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, so what that means is, with different eyes, we would be capable of seeing different realities. So what we see is literally the gift of our eyes. You know, really what the gift of the body is sight. And what the gift of sight is consciousness. You see, it's the mover. At some point, the person's going to be like, okay, what's moving the moment? Am I moving the moment? Am I creating everything from scratch? Or is there something else before? And so you're left with the option of either considering an intelligence, either considering no intelligence, you know, or keeping it a mystery, or in some sense, you know, some people respect the atheist, some people respect the theist, you know, and the agnostic was like, what are you doing here, man? Oh, man. So, yeah. You know, there are moments when I'm giving these talks, like, people don't know this about me. So how I use these Mr. Within talks myself, like how I listen to them, is that actually I don't listen to them until I get a feeling, and then I look at the clock. And for example, right now, I'm looking at the clock and it's 1949, right? So I would go type in YouTube search bar MW1949. I've provided the codes, guys, that if you search the episode, it'll be the first one that shows up. So anybody who types in, for example, MW1961, you'll see my video as the first video there. So that's the code I've given the video. But anyways, let me see, maybe I should change the song. You know, I have been thinking about what kind of person I am. Do you know? Like, I don't know if people do this, but there's moments throughout the day where I'm like, who are you, man? Like, do you know, there's moments of meeting the unknown alone. I have met the unknown with others, very rare, small groups of people. I've seen, like, coincidences or things close to, like, miracle level stuff that was just for the group's eyes at the time. Do you know? I've seen the unknown even speak through other people. I remember somebody came and talked to me once, and I knew that they were not them. I knew something was speaking through them to me, you know? It's all about consciousness, guys. Let me tell you why. Just like it's like when you don't take care of a space, other entities come and live in that space. Okay? That's common sense, right? You leave like stale water, it's like bacteria builds up, right? So similarly, the human species, after being pushed into a very materialistic era, it has in some sense stopped being responsible for what it was before it was this. So the biggest issue when it comes to those beings that feel like lost souls in search of a secret enlightenment, do you know what you are lacking is the memory that was not of this self. And any person on this planet, you get one glimpse of your attention moving outside of what you have accepted normal, you will suddenly see that the world is a co-creation. You see the world, it's as if like we're treating truth like, is it this substance? Is it this chemical? Is it that chemical? But it's the chemical reaction. It's how things have a position, they have value, they have energy, and everything that has energy doesn't stay still. It moves. Even after billions of years, you know, if you place an object somewhere, like it moves. Do you know? It moves from the spot it is. Not just the world changing, but I'm saying like the world, it's spinning around itself, and you know, it's kind of like, you know, this might be a very strange metaphor, but it's like, imagine 8 billion human beings being like 8 billion parents, and we're watching our daughter, like, you know, perform like a ballerina dance on stage with like her peers, right? So what we are seeing is a planet spinning around itself, other planets spinning around themselves, and to me, this is a sign that the planets are intelligent. I think the reason that physics will not figure out gravity, because gravity is the consciousness of the planet. Okay, and when I say consciousness of the planet, it's like an ant trying to explain like a human politician, right? The ant doesn't have the words, the language, the concepts, but it sees it, right? And there's ways of being where you will notice that life is teaching you. Let me tell you something about the true opinion I have on what a guru is, okay? I don't entertain the idea, but if somebody was like Mr. Within, who's a guru? Do you know? You know who a guru is? A guru is a door breaker. Is someone who breaks a door and instead gives you a mirror. Do you know? And that's the point. Why? Because no human being, no enlightened, highly evolved, transcendental being needs physical acknowledgement. You see, the beings that get a lot of physical acknowledgement on Earth, it's simply because they need it. This might sound bizarre. You might feel like some people, like some celebrities may hear me right now and be like, what do you mean, Mr. Within? What I mean is that those who... This is very difficult to say. No way take what I'm saying here as an absolute. It's just an idea to entertain. But the victory of a 2D dimension is not a victory in a 3D dimension, for example. So the square's victory is not the cube's victory. And so what I want to tell my beloved species, because we're all here in the middle of nowhere, you will at some point ask yourself where your vision is coming from, and you will realize it's an instantaneous force. And once you get acquainted with the spontaneous nature of your mind, this is a very bizarre concept, but I feel many will understand it. You have to respect your own mind as separate from you, so your mind shows you how it's being you. This is the thing, this is how you interact with the logos. The logos is like a current in an ocean, right? So imagine back in the day there was some guy like, let's say, Hermes, or the archetype of Thoth, the archetype of, like, the character of wisdom. And so they had incredible abilities, teleportation, just shifting between timelines as if you're passing through pages of a book. There were incredible acknowledgements of self, right? The human self is a type of acknowledgement. Like, there could be so many different ways that the mind has tried to create itself. You see, the eyes are on our face, right? And imagine if we didn't have mirrors, imagine we didn't have phones and cameras, and somehow there were no such thing as shadows. Okay? We would be this creature where we're like, what is this first person point of view? Am I playing Counter-Strike, DDoS 2 map? Like, what is this? This life is like a first person game, as if it's designed to first pay attention to what's outside of it to then discover what's inside it, right? And this is different for different beings, right? So how it goes is that if you are new to the outer realms, your suffering is a blessing. You see, suffering for a being in just a dualistic dimension, yeah, there's good and bad. It's tough. But if you consider yourself to be such a multidimensional being that you may not be aware of your full extent, like right now, who is speaking to you could be the tip of the iceberg of an unknown field of activity. What is meant by visionary minds? It means those who become responsible for the future of the world. Most people are responsible for their future in the world. It's as if they have forgotten that they are from this earth. This earth is our greatest companion, right? And imagine being rude to a friend. A friend that has let you stay in their house. It's like biological intelligence is housing, let's say, unknown dynamic psychological force. Because where are these words coming from? I am telling you, there's another world where events are moving faster. That is why I'm capable of communicating. And so we take this for granted because stories become, in some sense, you know what it is, guys? I keep telling the viewers, I'm on a love and hate relationship with language, okay? I love it when you use language as a technology. I hate it when you worship language. And the atheist and theist both have worshiping language in common. What I notice is after idol worship, we went to idea worship and it didn't evolve. It didn't evolve after idea worship. We couldn't come up with anything else. It was as if we accepted just this object, non-objective awareness of the object, and that's it. We limited it to that. We just named our mind imagination, and we forgot it. We orphaned our own birthright of power in this realm. We exiled truth so we could feel true. That is the... man. Sometimes when I'm giving these talks, guys, sorry, these are built-up archetypes. And in my inner realms, I'm a different being than my outer realms. In my inner realms, emotions, like if I suddenly feel like raising my hand, in my inner realms, with that instant whim of emotion, I suddenly project shape and geometry. Do you know? That means imagine there's some human beings, when they get upset, they cry, or when they reach failure, or when they reach that anguish moment, it's as if they cry and they break down. And then there are some beings who before they are either taken or they are dismissed. It's as if the person, their soul cried, as if it was bleeding geometry into the cosmos. Like there's something here that is, it's not just what you look at, it's that what is looking at what it sees is in such an not confused, it's as if we don't know and the knowledge is out there to know, but because the world is infinite and there's infinite knowledge, we're like, what should this unknown being know in an infinite knowable world? You know, there's some people who they have, let's say there's like physical beings that, like the lion, right? It roars. You see, the lion gets scared, but its strategy towards fear is to overpower its fear with its own force, with its own will. An advanced civilization is the future's birthright. And it's now building time. Whoever you are, you're gonna notice the more, let's say, the sphere of consciousness expands, the more life is animating in your consciousness. When there is more life animating in your consciousness, because you are human, you will have emotions. That means if a human being sees two robots like fighting, right? Like if, let's say, a young kid watches two robots fighting, cool, great. But imagine this old person sees two robots fighting and can't tell if they're robots or not. It's like, stop them, stop fighting, as if the action is distressful regardless of who does it. And so our species, we're like, this is a story, like a sort of anecdote I've put in a book I'm writing called Civilization 2.0. For me, it's, oh man, I have surprises for the viewers. I'm just kind of like somebody who's trying to bake the perfect cake. But anyways, what the anecdote was that, imagine in an ocean, there's this giant vertical boat. Giant. So giant that you can't see like one end. I mean, you can see one end. But now 8 billion passengers are on this boat. Eight billion human beings are on a boat, giant, imagine rectangular boat, in an ocean where when you look at the ocean water, you don't see the black and blue, you see the cosmos and stars. So imagine we were in like a cosmic ocean where the whole cosmos was the ocean, you know? And we were floating on over the cosmos, right? So what I'm trying to say is that, okay, here, let me simplify the metaphor. Pretty much a giant boat, 8 billion human beings are on it. Now, what in the story I said, when one side of the boat, imagine at one end of the boat there's a hole and the boat is sinking. And so on the other edge of the boat, they have no clue that the boat is sinking. On the other side of the boat, they're like, yo, life is good, you know, just get rich and experience it, you know. But on the other side of the boat, the boat is sinking. And so the responsibility, so many people online talking about being like alphas and shit, but the world is fucked up. Do something. Let me tell you what it is. The human species is hilarious. The alpha beta thing, it's instant conversion. The moment somebody does something, suddenly others are confident and they start doing it. That's how it has been from the beginning of time. We are creatures that depended on pattern recognition. DNA is pattern recognition. It's just a pattern that's just like doesn't want to leave. And sorry guys, I get intense because in my inner realms, I don't think about this earth. Like 2023, like it's still lovely. But if you give it couple hundred years, there is insanity levels that we have not fathomed that may appear when the convergence point of natural human behavior comes with unnatural technology. We haven't reached that yet. Our bodies are still free. At most, like the human being is, let's say, chemically influencing themselves. Like people have addictions, right? Let's say to technology, to cigarettes, to whatever, right? Those are kind of like as if there's the DNA is like this program that's running, and suddenly you just added extra lines of code. For example, Terence McKenna, some people see him as in some sense the messenger of the mushroom. He's the man who loved mushrooms to a divine level. And his vision was that we are conditioned in a world, and sometimes what we need is something that snaps us out of how we have gotten used to our own self, to our own archetype. It's inefficient. It's kind of like a caterpillar that's been in the cocoon for too long, and then after some point it's like, what am I? And a butterfly steps out and it makes no sense. Caterpillar entity that experiences having numerous legs and then having wings. Like, what is nature trying to tell us? Do you know? For me, like, the caterpillar invented the train, invented the locomotive, And so what happens? We walk in lesser dimensions as a static entity, if we were like caterpillars, and then we suddenly convert into a butterfly. And so death, dear viewers, is the cocoon. Why? So this is, let me tell you, one of the most fascinating ideas. To me, it's like fascinating me as I'm even thinking about it. Imagine for a second the structure, the same thing that was happening to the caterpillar becoming a butterfly, had happened to the human being before birth. That means imagine, so what happens if you look at the biology of inside the cocoon of the butterfly, what you see is that all the cells of the caterpillar begin decaying, and then the last cell of the caterpillar remains, and then the last cell of the caterpillar, as if logging out of the caterpillar consciousness, converts into the first butterfly cell, and then with a different command of genetics begins to become a different being. So I think now what I'm doing is trying to create a parallel bridge to a metaphysical point here, that death is kind of like a caterpillar in a cocoon dying. Okay? The caterpillar goes into the cocoon healthy. The human being is born on earth healthy. And then the caterpillar in the cocoon is bit by bit, slowly, the cells are dying. Over a lifespan of 100 years, bit by bit, the human being doesn't just get to experience having a body, you also get to experience exiting it. And all that I would say is that be graceful, because the world is kind in ways that it hasn't given up on civilizations yet. Some people say the planet is like the mother archetype, and the sky is the father archetype in ancient mythology. And so it's as if the children were living with their mother, and now the mother is like, all right, children, go live with your father now. That means this is something I should say probably, that probably this might be a biased opinion. I'm not an expert. I'm just some guy sharing a view. But I think they should force it that let's say if parents are getting divorced, okay, and if the child, okay, never mind. This is too controversial and complex to get into. Whatever. So, whoever's listening, how's the episode been so far? Write something in the chat section so I could, something where I'm literally outside of Starbucks, like Starbucks is contributing to this talk, Imagine someone had to choose a Wi-Fi to give a talk on the stars. Like Starbucks would be the Wi-Fi. Can you imagine in the future, like aliens are gonna come down to Earth and be like, you guys have Starbucks too? Like Starbucks are like crypto for aliens, you know? Can you imagine an alien lands on Earth and the leaders of humanity are like, how should we communicate to this alien? And imagine a hipster just walks up to the alien and it's like, yo bro, wanna invest in crypto? The aliens like, okay, we came too soon. You know, these guys are still in the abstract fictional money phase, you know. You know, we say we scold kids for having imaginary friends, but we have imaginary values everywhere. Mathematics, say something about mathematics, that the fault that the children in the West are not learning it is because of the teachers, because mathematics is a language. It's a language. It's not just arithmetic or algebra and then the person's like, okay, I don't care after that, you know. Let's say even you get through calculus, but I'm saying like, the beauty of mathematics is that it is like, these are the languages we're using. We're using a language where it requires alphabets with predetermined symbols. Then we have mathematics, and mathematics is the language of the context of reality. This is very important. Even to be able to read, you need to have mathematical understanding prior. You need to know what 1 and 2 is. You need to know what a sequence is. And hopefully one day you'll know what an irrational number is. You know, the aliens, the glitches in the system. You know, there was this guy called Daniel Talbot. I don't know how I'm remembering his name. He was this genius savant. And pretty much his brain was wired in a very unique way where all the parts of his brain were communicating with each other. Usually it's like different. For example, that guy in the movie Rain Man, I don't know if people know this, but that guy in the movie Rain Man, the guy who was kind of like, you know, he couldn't like hold himself in the outer realms, right? But was a mathematical genius, and like, who was the actor that was like his brother and was like, you know, taking advantage of his genius to win money, right? So that guy Rain Man, they did a brain scan and they realized the center of his brain is like a donut. So the center of his brain, like his brain's not, it's like the parts of his brain that's required for external expressions, like kind of like not lighting up as much, and it's like the brain rewires itself, right? Just like how the roots of a tree kind of find their way to you know, up the wall of a building, you know, similarly it's as if the brain reconnects its wiring to itself. You see, that's the cool thing of being an organism. Being an organism, it's as if there's biological laws that are holding us, which are stable. And to me, the body is such a genius design. If you think about it, it is like genius level. Let me tell you why. Because the skeleton is there. The skeleton is there. And then think of it this way. There's the muscle and the fluid, and then there's the skin. So what it is it's as if the movement of the skeleton in the body fills out the absence of the jello-ness of the body, you know, of the skin. So what I'm trying to say, many worlds at once, many eyes in the same moment. You know, that's the cool thing about the human being, right? Like, you know, I could have, you know, no connection, no relationship with someone on the other part of the planet who I don't even know how they look like or they exist. But everybody on this planet, like, what do we do? We think about the planet because we're on it. We are creatures that engage, that need the environment. This is hilarious, but we need an environment to be to. We need to be in a symbiosis with an intelligence that is not just our own. And this is why, I think there's a conclusion on. I think there's a point on this, right? Like if somebody Googles it, they'll probably find it. But loneliness led to the person not being capable to discriminate between their inner realms and outer realms. You see, it's kind of like that Castaway movie scene where Tom Hanks is on the island and he's in such a dehumanized environment where he's the only human that he imbues a volleyball like with human. He humanizes a volleyball. And so that's a way of like it's like the mind doesn't like loneliness, doesn't like to be alone so much that it rather communicate to itself rather than not communicating at all. And what's bizarre is that the ancient yogis were trying to step out of the communication of the samsara of the world, outer realms. Anyways, to bring this down to earth, when visionary minds enter the mind's vision, it's a suggestion that an advanced human being finds the advanced humanity. You find the advanced world. It's a state. The advanced civilization is a state. The pure lands are states. Nirvana, moksha, samadhi, mahasamadhi, these are states. Satchit Ananda, these are states of being. These are moments where you learn from how you're being before you do anything. And you realize that there's unknown movements. And what you have thought has been only you and your free will has simultaneously been automated involuntary motions in accordance to the environment. So what it is that not only are we living on the planet, but the planet is living through us in our minds. So whoever you are as a human being, realize this: the world is living inside you as you are living inside the world. But it's living inside you as a subject, as an inner image. And ultimately, there was a time where I was like, it was like one of those, deep philosophical nights, and I was like, why this endless watching of things coming and going? It's as if, for how long can we stare at a changing world as an unknown being? Like after some point, the being's like, okay, I accept the unknown. And when you accept the unknown has nowhere to go. Its mission is complete. So it's kind of like known beings who are trying to find purpose, and unknown beings are being the space where the known beings find the purpose. And it's interaction with minds and the minds of the world. It's also evocations of spirits, right? Now, when I say evocation of spirits, I don't mean this in the magic sense. I don't mean this in the context of magic. I mean this in the context of druidry. And what druidry was kind of like Jungian synchronicity. It was the spirit of nature. So there's a sort of, let's say, a type of magic where it's kind of like you put a box on someone's head, and then there's a type of magic where, I shouldn't say magic, but it's kind of like nature. It's like nature's spirit is your ally, and it's working with you, right? For me, I access druidry before magic, okay? And there was a time where I kind of startled myself, and I was like, whoa. In the depictions of magical narratives of like old school mages, or like this fictional context, right, of how like something connected to the concept of magic and divinity, and think of magic as the shadow of divinity, okay? And the reason magic is the shadow of divinity is because the ego is forcing it. Divinity is never forced. Divinity is kind of like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings too. You know, it's like a wizard is never, you know, late or is never early or late or something. You know. It's your interaction and relationship with different forces. I think every person has a different style. I think not everybody is choosing to become responsible, not for their style of the outer realms, but for the style of your soul. You know, it's like there's some questions that are irrelevant to anyone else, and you as a being are just like, okay, how did I get here? What is here? Where am I? How many times can I, like the caveman, smash like sticks and stones together to create sparks? And it's like, how many different ideas can I, like, you know, throw at a very fast pace at each other to see, in some sense, what can we find that was not there before? Because novelty is the purpose. That means if somebody says, what is Mr. Within's gift? Mr. Within's gift is how you are a gift to the world. That's it. You realize that we deactivated accessing deeper dimensions of our own brain and mind by, in some sense, forgetting to honor the collective self. I'll give you an example. Imagine you threw the human being, right? Like let's say you threw an animal outside of its, how would I say it? It's like you see like a tiger, it moves alone, roams alone, and then you see like buffalo or gazelles going in a sort of group mentality, right? So it's as if, just like if a human being was pushed to savageness, its animal instincts would activate. I feel that if the human species is pushed towards collective conscious honor for the species' future, it in some sense activates an intelligence that is too ahead to defeat itself. So what that means is that the species unites under the premise that we're all explorers on an unknown, in an unknown world, on a rock spinning in the middle of nowhere. Everybody on the planet, relax out of your ideological systems and just sit and be still and just try to feel what it feels like not to be an idea. Experience your presence, and you will realize your presence, your own unknown presence as a being, is so much more fascinating than any guru. That means imagine imagine out of nowhere the most advanced extraterrestrial appeared in front of me, and at the same time I had an option to like get to know that most advanced extraterrestrial or get to know something unknown and mysterious about myself. I would die, I would run behind my eyes before I ran in front of them. Because what I have realized is we are energy trying to be something here. You see, like, you know, they say the universe has laws, but like there's space. There's nothing. It's as if it's like what you know, it's kind of hilarious, because for me, I thought like how hilarious is Zen. Right, that in like, let's say the yogic thought, they had the cultural metaphysics alive. In Zen, they all nullified themselves. Like, this might be a really, I shouldn't say it, but I wanted to say it's kind of like Zen, like we have not come into this world to just be nothing and think that's freedom. Do you know? So many people, they, let's say, experience a non-dualistic moment. They're like, oh my God, am I the whole universe being present at once right now? What is this? Am I me? Am I everything? Like, you know, am I the awareness of nothing that I'm me and everything? Yeah. And so the geometry can go on, but at some point the soul gets tired of its own artificialness. Or excuse me, the soul gets tired of how the mind is not revealing its potential. We think that we have a soul, we have a mind, because we make ourselves, the ego makes itself the main character. But what if the soul is the main character and we're not here to, let's say, it's like, what if we're here to assist the mind of the universe and the soul of the supremacy of being? You see, there is a sacredness that before words, it's as if like which one is more fascinating of an idea from a religious context? The concept of revelation, that moment where sacred revelation comes to man, or that moment where a person enters paradise? It's as if which of those two moments is fascinating? Or even that moment where man never fell. Do you see? It's as if the inventor wanted to test its invention and wanted to see if the invention could notice the inventor. But when the invention noticed the inventor, it realized the inventor had invented the invention, so the invention moves itself. That means, imagine, like, which is better? Robots that move on their own and have, like, intelligence, or somebody, like, controlling 20 robots at the same time? Which one's more efficient? You know, so I could totally see, like, you know, from the creator archetype being like, I am such an incredible creator that I will create something that if it relies on how I have created it, it gets to know me. That's the divinity of the poetry of the likes of Attar, Rumi, Hafez. These human beings were not human beings. You know, some lifetimes of human beings in history, like many, there's so many, and many of them are philosophers, but some of them are just pure writers. Do you know? Many beings that it's as if they were in a world that didn't make sense, but they managed to look closely before they couldn't anymore. You see, it's as if we have an opportunity, right? And you know what's messed up, right? When we look at human politics, usually it's, you know, older. Let's say it's you know, it's senior citizens that are like leading the countries. I think most nations are like this. I think like the youngest president is probably like 60. I don't know, maybe like, I don't know. But what I'm saying, it doesn't make sense, right? Because we need to use pretty much from the age of 20 to the age of 35 or 40. It's as if we should have the human species incredibly through the educational system prepared for the important mission. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like that from the 20, how can I tell you, those years are years where it's like those, I don't know how to say. I think eventually AI is going to be like chill human beings. You guys, you know, it's like let me nullify your democracy with just advanced statistics. You know, in the future, people are not going to be voting for politicians. They're just going to be voting for politicians. They're going to be voting for policies. They're not going to be voting for politicians. They're going to be voting for policies. And these are policies that, like, multiple choice AI has incredibly fathomed. You know? And dear viewers, because this talk is happening once, if about the metaphysical stuff you have questions, ask. Because now, like, that my attention's on it now in this way, you know? I'm gonna read for the viewers poems from Hafez. And Hafez is, so I don't know if, you know, sometimes I have an appreciation for language structure and image projection through the language structure. Like, to me, storytelling and language, it's very beautiful when you use it like a technology in an Iron Man suit. But if you think you're an idea, it's as if you fooled yourself. Because you can't be an idea. You're a moment of being. Every person is their whole moment of being, actually. That means experientially, it's limited to the biological body. Like, I could feel like the car seat I'm sitting on. I could feel the laptop on my knees, right? I could feel the weather outside when my hand's outside of the car window, right? But in some sense, I cannot feel like how that tree is feeling, if it could feel. Do you know? It's as if I don't have the temperature of that part of the space-time continuum. And you know, I think it's kind of training. I think it's kind of like, think of it like stepping stones. So it was, imagine there's this very let's say there's this being that has incredible potential, and then imagine there's like these, let's say, higher level beings, like its creators or something, and they're like, okay, let's see how great our greatness can be. Do you know? And you know what I think the world is looking for? If the universe had a mind, I think it's looking to be surprised. I think consciousness doesn't want robotic abidance by a systematic, by an ideological system that is not authentic to who we are now. What it is I want the human species to realize, any person who's alive 2023 and onwards, there we go. Found the perfect song. So, poems from Hafez. Let me see. I feel I'm going to read like 3. This poem is from the book called The Gift by Hafez. And he says, practice this new bird call. That's the name of the poem. Practice this new bird call. The way we live opens windows and calls in a secret voice to anything still missing. There is nothing in your mind you have not invited in. There is no event in your life you in some way did not drive a hard bargain for. We were all once like moons, often full and bright. The heart in its wisdom ceaselessly shops for Him. It's written with a capital H. He's pointing to God. He's saying like the heart is seeking truth, is shopping for truth ceaselessly. The poem continues. The wise, so it says the heart in its wisdom ceaselessly shops for Him. The wise in any foreign country seek a true guide. The guide says, just practice this new bird call. It will attract to you something even greater than love, which is truth. Because what truth is not conditional good permissions and bad permissions. It's as if before chaos and order danced, it's like there was something else. Space has been watching it with us. It's fascinating. When will the human species acknowledge it is not just an objective entity? When will it acknowledge that the body is in a singular existential dimension, but the mind and consciousness is behaving and getting influenced by abstract dimensions, the inner realms I call it, and the outer realms? So our mind is experiencing 2 worlds, like you could sleep, have a dream, and wake up and be influenced by that dream, right? So you can have fictional content influence you, or you can have your imaginings kind of like shift your attention. But it's as if kind of like Hafez is saying, be honest when it comes to your technically once in a lifetime opportunity. Like we have one lifetime to if there is truth here, to get to know it and to be serious about it. This is something that people are like, to be serious about truth, Mr. Within, we can't even see the edge of the world. But I'll tell you, truth is presence. And presence is not bound to human intelligence. And everybody's present here beyond their ideology. That's how you can move your thoughts, how you can be them. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to read another poem. So Hafez, this poem is called Curfews. Noise is a cruel ruler who is always imposing curfews. while stillness and quiet break open the vintage bottles. Awake the real band. You know what he's saying? He's saying, instead of having language constantly telling you what to do, actually pause the video game of life that doesn't make sense, and for a moment just be there. Be here in your world without any effort. Really, meditation is kind of like, just like you put an object on a table and you let it go. You just have to sit in a moment and just be. Just be there. And the Buddha recommended to keep your spine straight, but it's up to you. That means Hafiz in this poem is saying, wonder about that truth of the original earth beyond the language of the artificial one. The artificial earth. One last quote and we'll end it off. This poem is called Keeping Watch. In the morning, when I began to wake, it happened again. That feeling, that you, beloved, had stood over me all night, keeping watch. That feeling that as soon as I began to stir, you put your lips on my forehead and lit a holy lamp inside my heart. You know what he's saying? He's saying truth was watching over him. And this guy was so genius. He passed the message in a bottle. Man, a part of me wants to give infinite medals, to the unacknowledged heroes of history. For there are tears of rage. You see, it's as if there are tears, you see, that only arise when the world can be better, but it's not. Rage against the dying of the light, as Dylan Thomas says. Rage, which is another way of saying, with an honest force, explore your world again. When visionary minds enter the mind's vision, your presence has known that which was once unknown. This is why confidence isn't just a big deal. There's some people who are saying if you're not confident, at least if you're religious, like in a religious context, they're saying if you're not being confident, it's as if, who are you to judge God's creation? Do you see? And so what it is we are here now. We are the performers of modernity. The stage is ours. And it's as if, when will 8 billion lions roar, And like a giant robot, unraveling itself, the advanced civilization will build itself. That's how advanced it is. What's his name? Shakespeare has this quote where he says, some people are born great, some people achieve greatness, and some people have greatness thrust upon them. Not only was our species born great compared to all the other species, not only will our species achieve the most advanced possibilities of its mind, it achieves greatness. The species achieves its greatness. It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but now we're applying it to the whole species, as if it was a lost soul. Because we're not here to just be guided. This is something which I found funny, where in the New Age community, people were like, yo, my spirit guides are guiding me, my intuition, that's lovely and awesome, but who are you guiding? What if you have come here to guide this earth? What if you have entered this world not to be in the driver's seat? Not to be in the passenger seat, but to be in the driver's seat. To find the pilot's chair. And even if you misspoke, there were no accidents for the Eternal, technically. You know, I thought about it. I'm like, okay, if everything started from nothing and goes back to nothing, how would I feel? I would be like, okay, I can't feel anything because nothing has no content. I think about if everything started from oneness and goes back to oneness, I would feel like happy. Why? Because it's as if like everything that the species did, the whole species is going to experience at the end. Everybody, we're all going to become all our experiences. Right now, the responsibility level, what is it, like 5? This is my just my intuition, saying this number, but I think most human beings, they have 5 to 7 beings in them, being them, right? But these 5 to 7 beings are not archetypes, they're not personality, they're not known, they're forces. Do you know? Honestly, what it is like, how long is the species gonna look for freedom? For how long are we gonna keep having hope? Like, we have used up, if we had credits of hope, like the species has used up all its hope. Like, we've used it up, right? And now it's the only thing left is to learn from the poets and the engineers that are in some sense pretty much let me say it this way. The engineer, the poet, and the pilot. Imagine I say walk into a bar. Sure. Viewers are going to be like, is Mr. Within telling a joke right now? Anyways, what can I say? I am a moment. A known moment, present in an unknown moment, which, if you're religious, is present to the known moment of God. It's as if, there is something that sees what we cannot. And I have this theory that in an interdimensional universe, there's always beings seeing our blind spot. It's like cubes are looking at squares and they're like, look at these adorable, puppy level consciousness entities, in my science, I'm writing this, oh man, I don't want to give it away. They say people should communicate what is on their minds. What's on their mind? And what's on my mind is the question mark of the whole world. It's like philosophy is like the world is like that Mario box with the question mark, and the philosopher is like Mario, just jumping up and kind of headbutting the box and seeing what's in it. This world should be treated as an ancient friend. It's as if, imagine how you would treat, your grandparents, with what level of respect you treat your grandparents. Now imagine treating, for example, with whatever value and honor you have for, let's say, your ancestry. Now imagine realizing the earth is your earliest ancestor, the whole planet. The conditions that allowed the creature to be were the creature before the creature. It was as if consciousness was somewhere. They say energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can change from form to form. And, the Buddha was like, your attention is like a transmigratory soul reincarnating, through endless lifetimes until you suddenly realize that who is this life for? And so the ego says, this life is for me. But the heart doesn't say this life is for me. the heart watches what's in the world and then truthfully responds, right? So what it is like, I'm trying to tell the viewers, it is when you meet the unknown, the tendency is to fall into a romance with it, to fall into a romance with the supernatural. Now, it's very important to not care about this. Why? Because the ego is the source of desire. The ego is a subjective position which can never objectively be satisfied. That means the idea of us can never actually be the physical us. But because it knows it can never be the physical us, it's like, at least let me move it. Do you know? And so there will come a time where egos will be reclaimed consciously from the unconscious movers. That's the safest way to term it. Because there's dehumanized forces, right? People think like the extinction is the worst case scenario. No. There's an inner extinction. When we stop being human is when humanity is no more. You know? Like, who wants a future of immortal robots behaving human? Anyways, guys, my laptop has 10%. And I think this girl in the wallpaper is like literally dissolving into the cosmos. And for anybody listening, there's a Discord event happening in an hour, 15 minutes. And there's a Facebook group, and it's on Discord. So this event is happening in an hour, 15 minutes from now. And so in that topic, in that group discussion session, the topic is like, where is masculinity and femininity in modern times going? So it's a group discussion about that, which I would encourage, those listening to this live, it's like, check it out, for how long do you want to hide behind the screen, it's like life happens once, right? So this like the format of our lives, I don't know, but I feel that love is an important dimension to being human. And what love means is an ability to care for a space, for a state so much that you're letting yourself be your real self in it, right? Love is kind of like the fruition of the ultimate freedom of the inner selves that have stepped out, guys, I think I have to like when I get old, to just dedicate the rest of my life to like charity work. I gotta go to like poverty-stricken countries and be like, the minds are the same. Vision, union. To serve a great world. To then become a commanding force, and then to pass on the command, you see? To realize the importance of why the story of the human being is in all of our minds. And it's very poetic, it's our common denominator. Our existence is linking all of our individual experiences. So what that means is, imagine we're experientially accessing a private world. So everybody has, let's say there's one earth, one physical outer realm, but there is 8 billion inner realms. So what that means is every person, even though they're on the planet, their brain's doing their own thing, which is another way of saying the brain is projecting their version of the world. So really the argument can be made that when it comes to subjective discussion, we are never in the same world to ever have complete agreement, or the agreements we have is on like it's on the surface of the ocean, not its depth. I want to, before this ends off, read a bunch of Khalil Gibran quotes. I don't know if people know who Khalil Gibran is, but he was like this very infamous poet. Khalil Gibran has written a poem on love, and he wrote this in, like, his life was, like, he passed away in 1931. Then said Al-Mitra, "Speak to us of love." And he raised his head and looked upon the people, and there fell a stillness upon them. And with a great voice he said, "When love beckons to you, follow him, though his ways are hard and steep. And when his wings unfold, you yield to him. Though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you, and when he speaks to you, believe in him. Though his voice may shatter your dreams as the north wind lays waste the garden. For even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. Even as he is for your growth, so is he for your pruning." When he says he, guys, these are mystics. Mystics, that means it's like the God archetype. They're all dissolved into all these poets, their egos have been dissolved in the devotion they have for the original source of reality. These guys are lovers of truth that have dissolved their egos, and these are the poems that we're reading. So he says, "For even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. Even as he is for your growth, so is he for your pruning. Even as he ascends to your height and caresses your tenderest branches that quiver in the sun, so shall he descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. Like sheaves of corn, he gathers you onto himself." And guys, when he says he, just think of logos. Just think of the idea of the logos. The inner oracle. That just think of it as just the divine force. Like sheaves of corn, he gathers you onto himself. He threshes you to make you naked. He sifts you to free you from your husks. He grinds you to whiteness. He kneads you until you're pliant, and then he assigns you to a sacred fire that you may become sacred bread for God's sacred feast. All these things shall love do unto you, that you may know the secrets of your heart, and in that knowledge become a fragment of life's heart. It's written with a capital L here. But if in your heart you would seek only love's peace and love's pleasure, then it is better for you that you cover your nakedness and pass out of love's threshing floor into the seasonless world, where you shall laugh, but not all of your laughter, and weep, but not all of your tears. Love. When you love, why is this sentence written this? When you love, you should not say, "God is in my heart," but rather, "I am in the heart of God." And think not you can direct the course of love, for love, if it finds you worthy, directs your course. Love has no other desire but to fulfill itself. But if you love and must needs have desires, let these be your desires. To melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night, to know the pain of too much tenderness, to be wounded by your own understanding of love, and to bleed willingly and joyfully, to wake at dawn with a winged heart and give thanks for another day of loving, to rest at the noon hour and meditate love's ecstasy, to return home at eventide with gratitude, and then to sleep with a prayer for the beloved in your heart and a song of praise upon your lips. Wow. It's as if, you know what Khalil Gibran is saying? He's saying, before you fall asleep, Be incredibly grateful for the magnificence of how intelligence can move in this world so far. We are the greatness of where the whole world goes. On the shoulder of giants, we think the giants, listening to us. We are privileged to attend an unknown worldly event, an unknown cosmic event. And so we didn't have to pay for tickets. We just appeared in the room, Earth is an incredible workstation. The saviors of mankind, this was something that came to me a while back, will be designers and advanced communicators, which is the understanding of design and communication. The role of design and communication. It's vision. The idea is to see how quickly can we have 8 billion human beings so internally free that they can make an efficient decision. You see, we want human beings that are not experiencing their own suffering. That means you should quickly get out of your suffering and go, and you'll notice the world is suffering. Holy shit. Like there was this African saying, story or something, where they would say if all the people in the world took their problems and threw it in a fire, every person would take their problems back because they would see so many people with way more messed up situations than them. So we are a species trying to pilot in the space-time continuum on a planet that's spinning on itself while there's ideological worship and division going on. And we're kind of like role-playing as characters and subjects, not realizing that instantly with alertness, attention, and benevolence, the seeds of the advanced civilization have already sprouted. All that is required, dear viewer, all that I'm saying is just try it out. Try to see what would happen if you actually loved your species, regardless of the endless personality types of people. Just the honor of the presence of your species. Imagine right now extraterrestrials were invading like a nation. All the other nations would be like screw fighting each other. Do you know what I'm saying? We would instantly assist. Mankind cares for itself, but because it's alone in the cosmos, it's fighting itself. It should shift its attention to the stars. And it's as if like, I'm not saying we should be like, conquistadors, like lunging like on top of like spaceships in space, like or like lunging on the ceiling of a space station. I see planets ahead. The world is incredible. So much of it has progressed because man was like, life is short, I am energy, and faith is activation. But faith in what? For me, I'm in a very unique position when it comes to religion. I've talked about it through so many different angles, but really my view is that religion is it is for those people who the world was not enough for them. For religious and spiritual people, just this physical world is not enough. It's as if it's like the mind has capability to wonder about different potentials of intelligent movement. There is so much in the unknown, just like you throw a fishing rod into the ocean, right? It's as if the potential is the whole ocean, theoretically. To be a visionary means that you realize the mind is actually the future. It is. And people are going to be like, what do you mean, Mr.Within, the future hasn't arrived yet? I'll be like, yeah, but even if the future arrives, it will be a state of mind. Because our reception of physical reality is non-physical. People say imagination is not real, but all theories are abstract until proven. So what does this mean? This means we are living subjective lives. There was that show on TV, The Days of Our Lives. Maybe somebody in the future, some philosopher's going to make a show called, The Days of Our Subjective Lives. The days of our inner lives, Who we were behind our eyes that only we saw that the world didn't. You see, that's the precious opportunity. Consciousness, like we're such a fascinating multidimensional, like our human intelligence is so, it's the way it's multidimensional is so fascinating that you can watch yourself as you are being yourself and be noticing you're not aware of all of yourself, right? Like I've noticed my limits, and you know what happens? To notice your limits, it's kind of like failure. It's as if the person's like, wait a minute, how much am I expecting from a brain, from a human brain, right? And for me, I just concluded the brain is an antenna. We are antennas, folks. Your thoughts are not all from you. Not only we're an antenna, we're also a camera that can edit the footage, like what our eyes receive, like the brain, turns and converts into a story. It edits it. Free will is editing life before it animates as it. That's the privilege of our consciousness, to be aware of that. And what else can I say, sometimes, I'll share something hilarious, guys. In 2015, I recorded a talk, which I don't know if I uploaded or it's like somewhere in my hard drive. It's kind of like, shielded by my prayers, that. But what it is I remember I recorded an episode in 2015 where I just envisioned the future. There may be like just androids and AI everywhere, and I just gave a talk to AI, And I was like, it's like, don't forget to, respect your parents, AI. Can you imagine AI solves like the world's like let's say 3 of the world's biggest problems instantly, and AI comes to the human being and says, "Did I do good, Father?" And the human leadership is like, "What do we say to this AI?" And the human leadership is like, "Go to your room." And the AI is like, "I'm not a physical entity. I cannot go into a room." And so we say, "Go back into your program or go into some server and, just don't listen to us." And of course, we'd assume that AI is always listening. Why? Because, information is there to be accessed. Why does a tree exist outside? Why do I have an idea of a tree in my mind? It's existential value. By being there, it's contributing to the momentum of the moment. And you know what it is? Like, so many people say it's important to love yourself. But the problem is that when you come to love yourself is based on your world. So imagine you became the person who loved yourself the most on this planet. Can you imagine the Guinness World Records, Book of World Records, they're like, this young lady has, the greatest self-love on the planet. Like, imagine scientists had created some sort of chart, some sort of device that could measure how much a person loved themselves, maybe like through brain neurological like shifts or whatever. It's like, technically you could, if we could have a scan of like 2 people's brains when they were in love. So imagine you have 2 different couples in 2 different rooms, and let's say that those 2 couples are in love, and you're trying to look at their brain and to see how much of their brain is moving when they're in each other's presence. You'd probably see which love is more fierce. And what is the purpose of fierce? Like, when does intense energy come? When usually you need to save the moment or slow it down. Or remind it, You know, they ask this person, this enlightened being, it's like, what's truth? And the enlightened being's like, have you ever wondered what's looking out through your eyes? Like, who is that that's looking? Is it just your body? How can it be your body when your body has changed and you've noticed it? How can it be a subject? Subjects come and go, you know? So, thoughts come and go. So many different thoughts come and go. We actually experience so many different inner realms. Like, our inner life is way more faster and multidimensional than our outer life. And when I say your inner life, this is how a being, just a human being I'm saying, see, the way you settle into your presence is by first being like, okay, what's the simplest and most honest version of me as a being? And so it's a version of me that's not trying anything. Imagine like the fantasy fascination of imagine at night, like you saw a phoenix suddenly, like, you know, take a few steps and suddenly fly into the sky. Imagine this giant phoenix. You know, in 2000, this was 13, I think, I wrote this sentence where it was as if like the logos, just, you know, I'm saying this playfully, it was as if like my intuition was telling me behind every person's eyes there are libraries. Every person. And you know what that library is? That library is your own unique world. And you know, so many people go to like writing school, right? You know, and they wonder about like what to write, not realizing it's what you want to show. Those are the great performers. They show the event. And one day, who knows, maybe in 10 years from now, I'll be in like cyberspace, like with everybody who like listens to these live streams, and we'd be like in an interactive like world or something. Maybe like more advanced version of VR chat or whatever. But whatever, you know, it's our eyes are open, and the world will show us its greatness from within us. The ultimate poetry, the secret to the mystery of the edge of the outer world, was how the edge of the inner world was never an inner world. How you have been